This is the central square of Ulaanbaatar, capital city of Mongolia. Many people know it as Sukhbatar Square. Here we have the government palace, the statues of Genghis Khan and Lieutenant Sukhbatar. The reason why their statues are located here is because they played an important part in making the history of Mongolia. However, just building a few statues doesn't necessarily mean we are talking about history. In that sense, there is a place that keeps all the history of Mongolia, starting from ancient times, that is the Mongolian National Museum.
Hello everyone! We're in front of the biggest museum of Mongolia, the National Museum of Mongolia, and all of the artifacts from the all museums are 30% in our museum. So we have 60,000 artifacts in this museum, so let's begin our journey in the National Museum of Mongolia.
Enjoy your visit. Ticket each one 8,000. This is our museum. Information in English.
The museum explores Mongolian ethnicity, Mongolia's livelihood, and their related historical artifacts. Perhaps you can explore this from many sources, but the National Museum of Mongolia will give you the most reliable and comprehensive answer about everything you wanted to know about Mongolia. From this museum, you will know more about Mongolia from its ancient ancestry right up to the present democratic era.
So we have 9 halls, and the first hall is about Mongolian ancient history. So in this hall we talk about the first difference of a human, Stone Age, and the Bronze Age and the late Iron Age period in Mongolia. So let's go inside and talk about our first hall. So it starts from the first appearance of a human, which is 800,000 years ago in Mongolian land. And next after that there is the Stone Age. So Stone Age is divided in 3 parts. Simply we call this one the Old, Middle and New Stone Age period. But next after that the stone tools develop, and there is a Neolithic period, so New Stone Age period tools, which is really smaller and in details. They use in stone tools in many things. So next after that there is the Bronze Age in Mongolia. So from the 3000 BC. So the main things in Bronze Age is the deer stone right there, 2 of them, and the next after that there's a square burial and hirksur, 2 burial types. So on the center of the hall there is a deer stone.
The remains of dwellings of ancient humans can be found in all parts of Mongolia. You will explore the Neolithic period of Mongolia, its steppe and ancient Mongolia in the first hall of the museum.
Behind of me there is the 2 deer stones. So in Central Asia there is 900 these type of stones, and almost 90% of them are in Mongolia, in the western part of Mongolia, and those stones are built for the high-ranked people in Bronze Age period. So when tribe leader or the hero or the warrior, when they died, they put these type of stones for their memorial. So it's kind of a memorial thing in that time.
The museum is divided into 9 halls. The Hall of Ancient Mongolia, the Hall of Traditional Mongolian Clothing's Ornaments, the Hall of Mongolian Empire, Hall of Traditional Mongolian Culture, Hall of Mongolian Traditional Farming, Hall of 17th and 20th Century Mongolia, Hall of Mongolian Socialism Era, and Hall of Democratic Mongolia.
National Museum of Mongolia was established in 1924.
The museum has been restored many times since it was opened. In 1931, it was renamed as the Revolutionary Museum, National Museum of Community History in 1940, Central State Museum in 1956, Museum of Mongolian People's Revolution in 1971, and finally as National Museum of Mongolian History in 1991. Since 2008, the museum has gone under the name Mongolian National Museum till this day.
So the second hall is about a Mongolian ancient states. So from the Bronze and Iron Age period, the small chiefdoms and became states, and the states became empire. And right now, in the 2nd century BC, it's a Hunnu Empire. So one of the first nomadic empire in Central Asia. So actually, the states or empire name is changed in Central Asia, but the people are the same. So the name is changing, but the empire is same. So from the Hunnu Empire, next after that, Xianbi Empire. After that, Zhujiang period, and next after that, the Uyghur period. And there is another, the Khitan period. So the states are changing in Central Asia through the history of our nation. And right there is some of that effect from the Hunnu Empire. So here is the chariot. So we had a lot of diplomatic relations with Han Dynasty in the 2nd century BC. So they gave a lot of things for the tribute, not fighting with them. So there's some parts of a chariot. So we are in the third hall of our museum. So it's a hall of Mongolian traditional clothing and jewelries. So right here, there's the Mongolian ethnic group clothes. Right now we have 19 ethnic groups of Mongolia, and all of them live in a different part of Mongolia, which is their living climate and their way of life is a little bit different, and their culture is a little bit different too. So they have to wear different type of clothes in their living part. And most of them are from the 19th to 20th century, and all of them are ceremonial clothes.
It is possible to understand the culture and the way of life of the nomadic Mongolians from their unique ethnic clothing. Mongolia is composed of over 20 ethnic groups within 2 nations. The ethnic groups wear their own traditional clothes and ornaments, which reflects age, sex, and social position of the people, as well as the environment, history, and traditions of each of the groups. There are robes, jackets, belts, outerwear, boots, and hats. There are over 400 types of belts, 100 kinds of hats, 20 types of shoes, and 30 types of belts. You can explore them in detail in the Hall of Mongolian Traditional Clothing.
So we're in the third hall about a Mongolian Empire time. So this is the highest peak of our history, or the golden age of our history. So in the 1206, Chinggis Khan united all the Mongolian tribes, and he created the Mongolian Empire, which is well known, the Mongolian Empire in the history of the world. So it starts from right there. So there's the Hararum city, so ancient capital city of Mongolian Empire in that time. And Chinggis Khan is well known because he united the Mongolian tribes. But his grandson Hopla Khan expanded his grandfather's empire to the biggest. So Hopla Khan made the biggest empire. So from the Korean peninsula right here to the Europe, to Ukraine and some part of Hungary, and almost all of the Southeast Asia and Russia. So in 1264, the Hopla Khan, the grandson of Chinggis Khan, transferred the capital city, today's Beijing. From the Hararum city, he transferred the capital city here in today's Beijing. And the interesting thing is right there, the Blue Road. So this Blue Road is a merchant Marco Polo's travel. So he started his travel from Venetia, from Italy, and he traveled through Silk Road, and he worked for the Hopla Khan for 17 years. And he went back to the Venetia after that. And in Mongolian Empire time, Mongolians controlled Silk Road fully, which is really helpful for the merchants from both of the world, from east and west. So you give one-time tax to the Mongolians, and it was really safe compared to previous times. The previous time, the Silk Road was considered as a really dangerous place for the merchants. But in the Mongolian time, it was absolutely different. It changed it more better place for the merchants.
Among the unique collections of the museum, there are armored boots from the Mongol Empire during the 13th century and rare clothing items of shamanists in Mongolia.
Hello, my name is Jarek. I'm Polish. Living in Austria, in Europe. I came here last week, so my impression about the country before I came here, actually my thoughts was, of course, Chinggis Khan and the big empire, something from the story I don't know exactly, but a lot of people know that story more or less. And here in museum, the most pretty part, most beautiful part is the last floor, this one, about Genghis Khan Empire actually.
This hall comprises of archaeological findings of the Mongol Empire's history, military apparel, artifacts found from ancient cities, proof of diplomatic relations between the Hans, and the restoration model of the Mongol Empire's city.
Here in the museum, it was very interesting to see about these old weapons and tools they used for 100 years. Also, the story of Genghis Khan. I read a book from him. Yes, very interesting.
So we're in the fifth hall, so the hall of a Mongolian traditional culture. So it starts from the shamanic clothing, the costumes of shamanic people in Central Asia and in Mongolia. And the next part is about Buddhism in Mongolia. So from the 17th century, Mongolia became a Buddhist country. So Buddhism became a state religion. So they built a lot of monasteries all around Mongolia. And one of them is here, the famous one, the Amarbaysaklant Monastery, right behind me. So it's a smaller size. And right there, there's the Mongolian script and some of the Mongolian, like different type of scripts. So the only language that writes from top to bottom. And next after that, there is the religious musical instruments. So all of those musical instruments are for the Buddhist and for the special ceremonies. And next after that, there is the traditional musical instruments. So all of these musical instruments are actually spread through Asia. I can say those musical instruments are Mongolian, like fully Mongolian, but there is only one musical instrument. So we call this one Mörökhor. So it's a kind of a horse violin. It's from the Hunnu Empire of Mongolia. And next after that, there is the national sports. So 3 mainly sports and not a festival. The horse racing, wrestling, and archery. And next after that, there is some traditional games of Mongolians. So ankle bone games, wooden puzzle games, and some part of a domino kind of games in this hall.
You will explore historical pictures and artifacts about how Mongolia proclaimed its independence from the Qing dynasty that ruled Inner and Outer Mongolia over 200 years, and then how Mongolia switched to socialism and started on the road to democracy from this hall.
We are in the 6th hall of our museum, so the hall of a traditional life of Mongolians. So here is the tools and things of daily life of Mongolian people, the nomadic life of Mongolians, right here. Behind of me, there is the Gir, which is the home of Mongolian people. Top of that, there is a circle window. We call this one Tan, and it's a meaning of a sun. And there is many like striking like columns or the red sticks. So these are called Un, or these are the meaning of a sunlight. And there is many walls on the gear, mostly 4 or 5. So the walls are representing or the meaning of earth. And there's a 2 column from the circle window. So that 2 column is the meaning of a bridge from heaven to earth. So the usual Mongolian gear is always to the south direction. So we are in the 7th hall of our museum. the hall from the 17th century to beginning of 20th century. So from the 17th century, Mongolia became underruled by the Manchurian dynasty. So there's a lot of torture tools in our museum right here. So if Mongolians don't pay taxes or against their Manchurian government, they usually torture us. And there's a lot of revolution things in this hall from the 1911 revolution. And right there is the last emperor of Mongolia, the Bogd VIII. And there is a lot of independence things right there in our museum. So we're in the 8th hall of our museum. The hall name is Socialist Mongolia. So this part is about a turning point of our history. In 1921, there is a Bolshevik or the White Russians came to the Mongolia. They escaped from Russia and came to the Mongolia. And in 1921, there is a revolution in Mongolia. And there is a Sukhbatar, the military general clothes. So on this wall, it's the 1970s and 80s things in Mongolia. So all of the things are made in Mongolia. So the development part of Mongolian history in that time. And next after that, there is the first astronaut of Mongolia right there. The Gurarakcha. He was the first astronaut of Mongolia. He flew to the space in 1981 with the Russian astronaut Zheny Bekov. And in that time, there's only 10 countries that flew their astronauts to the space. Mongolia was one of the 10 countries. And actually this suit, the space suit, is actually real, and the person, the Gurarakcha, is still alive in that right now.
My name is Antoine. I'm from Holland, but I live in Germany. The first time I came to Mongolia was in 2008. So the museum also is very nice. I personally am very much interested in the historic part of the museum, especially the old history of the
After they visited the museum, their impression is very highly, and they really enjoyed our museum. And also I hope that many of the Mongolians want to visit our museum. And now I would like to introduce our museum timetable. The museum works, opens every day during the summer. It's from the middle of May, 15th of May to the 15th of September. Museum opens every day in the morning 9 o'clock and until half past of the 5 it's open. And price museum ticket for the adult is 8,000. Then students are the 2,500 Tugruk. Then children ticket is 1,000 Tugruk. There is a special discounted ticket. It's the family ticket. It's the 6,000. It's cheaper than the one person. All of the family members can buy one ticket. It's the 6,000. It's a special discount for the Mongolian family, because also museum staffs trying to introduce Mongolian culture for the Mongolians, for the new generations, for the youngs. That's why we just introduced this special ticket. I would like to invite all of people. Welcome to the National Museum of Mongolia, and our gate always open for you.